Hey everybody, welcome back to the 1961 Beetle chassis restoration video series. I believe this is starting off video number 3. Today I'm going to go through how to basically prepare the chassis for rust preventative paint and seam sealing. Pretty easy process once you've gotten this far. This is actually the easy part, so not too much of an effort to get into. But it does require the right supplies and stuff. So I'm going to walk you through what we need to get started. So welcome back. Here we go. All right, we've got the 61 bug chassis pretty much ready for paint and seam sealer. And I'm going to walk through the supplies that you're going to need to do this job. And the first most important step of this job are some really good gloves. Now, I love these GloveWorks HD heavy duty gloves that are nitrile, extra thick. They're non-latex. They come in a pack of 100. They are a little bit expensive right now. Obviously, this is November of 2021, and a lot of these GloveWorks, these come in a lime green and also in this orange color, but they're in pretty high demand right now. Obviously due to the COVID pandemic, a lot of these gloves are being simply used strictly for medical professionals. So I buy them when I can get them. They've been really hard to get the last couple of years, and they've been a lot more expensive, but they're really good. I love them. They're textured as well, so they're good for easy grip, and I really like it. They do run pretty tight, so I'm using the 2XL, and they fit pretty snug. So I'm also kind of a big guy, so 6'5". So yeah, you're going to want to get yourself some really good gloves, because throughout this process we're going to use POR 15 rust preventative paint. And this stuff, if you get this on yourself, your clothing, anything, it will not come off. I've gotten this on my skin, and it'll be on there for days, usually 7 to 10 days before that stuff actually goes away. So first of all, make sure you're wearing some really good clothes that you don't mind getting dirty, your shop clothes, a t-shirt. You know, I'm wearing, it's cold outside, so I got a sweatshirt. But I don't care if it gets paint on it, because it's my outdoor shop clothes. So good gloves are a really good thing to have for this job. Now, the first thing that I'm going to end up doing is, because these pans have this orange paint on them, I'm going to go through and scuff the paint a little bit. And so I'm going to use some 220 sandpaper on a little palm sander, air control. This is a pneumatic palm sander that I have. So I mean, you can just use sandpaper if you want. I've actually done this job without scuffing this, but what I worry about a little bit is what happens is, throughout the first coat of this POR 15, it tends to bubble up in spots and separate, so it doesn't really stick very well in certain spots, and just in really small spots. So I've seen that I've had to go back through in previous times and put a second coat down. So I don't really want to. I think one coat is plenty. And so I'm gonna walk through and basically scuff this pan pretty good, so, and see if that helps with the first coat of POR 15 to stick. Now, these pans also come with stickers on them in several different locations. So I've already gone through and ground, I mean, they don't usually come off trying to peel them off. So I've gone through with my little grinder, and I've ground them down, and there's some on the flip side as well. But this is definitely something you want to get those stickers off before you start this project. Now, I like to start with the bottom side, and there's a couple of reasons for that. When I start with the bottom side, I'm going to do this one side at a time, and I'm going to do it complete one side at a time. So as I go through with the POR 15, and we're going to apply it with a brush. So I bought some cheap, and I wouldn't say like dollar store cheap, but maybe a grade up from that. The dollar store brushes, the hairs come off as you're brushing, and so that tends to get stuck in that paint. So I like to go a little bit step up. I think these were a couple dollars a piece, and hopefully I'll have a little bit better luck with these. But I got them in 2 different sizes. I'll try to do a big brush to get most of it on there. But then what I'll end up doing is I'll go in with this smaller brush, and I'll get in these cracks and crevices with a lot of paint. And I want to get that in there nice and thick, because I actually want this to drip through, which will help seal off any gaps that you might have along the way here, prior to going through and actually laying this 3M automotive seam sealer. This is a gloss black 3M urethane seam sealer. This will be the last step that I do, and so as we get through this video series, this will be the very last thing that I do, but I'm going to stick to the underside first, and I'm going to have all this paint down, let the paint dry, and then come back and seam seal the bottom, and then let that dry, and then flip it over, and then I'll do the top side. And when I get to the top side, you'll see that there's actually going to be run marks and drip marks that I'm going to sand down before I start painting the top side. So that's the process. This paint usually takes, depending on the weather, usually takes 12 to 24 hours to really cure and dry. So you want to be really, give yourself some time on this. This is going to take me a few days to do, a couple days I would say, probably, just depending on my schedule, but this is going to take a couple days to do. It's 4:30 here on a Sunday evening, so I'm going to paint basically the bottom section and let that dry for 24 hours, and then tomorrow evening I'll come in and seam seal or touch up any spots that need to be touched up. So that's the process. I'm going to coat this. I'll put this on time lapse so you can kind of see this process underway, but as simple as just basically dab and brush. I have heard that you can air spray this, so if you have a spray gun, you could do that, but I choose to brush. So, but first steps, get to work with some sandpaper, scuff up this orange paint, and before we start laying this down. So, all right, stay tuned. We'll walk you through this, and if you missed the pan preparation videos, go back and watch the first 2 videos in this series, and it'll show you how to properly fit your floor pans and get your floor pans ready for basically this step. So, but if you're here, you got new pans in, you're ready to go, follow along. See ya. Okay, I just got done scuffing the pans, and I just wanted to show you just what I was talking about. You know, if you're taking your chassis and having it sandblasted, obviously you don't need to worry about that, but I'm not going to do that. So I decided to scuff these pans a little bit and just trying to knock the top layer off a little bit. I don't know, you can't really see it there, but you can see the top layer's kind of been knocked off just a shade, just enough to give it that pour 15 something to stick to. So I think we're all set. The last thing you would need to do before you get ready to put paint on is a really good clean. I'm going to use some tack wipes and just kind of go through and make sure all the dirt is off the top of the surface here. That way you get a really good, nice, clean stick with that paint. So that's next, and we'll get painting. See ya. got the pour 15 down on the bottom side of the pan now, and it is looking pretty good. It'll take some time for this paint to dry. I do want to point out, if you look at my garage floor, you see some drip marks there. If you care about drip marks on your floor, you might want to lay something down. That stuff will not come off when it dries. But there you have it. So now the waiting game begins. Gonna take 24 hours to let this cure. You know, if it's warm where you're at, doesn't take nearly as long. I've actually done one of these jobs in the summertime, and it takes about 6 hours, 5-6 hours for it to cure. But I would recommend that you just let it cure for a day and then go about your way. And we'll go through and seam seal everything once this is done curing. The next step is to go through and seam seal. So that'll get done tomorrow. We'll get the 3M seam sealer underway and seal this baby up on the bottom side, and we'll pick it up from there. So stay tuned. Well, we're back after letting the chassis dry for 24 hours. It is now almost exactly 24 hours since I laid it down, and man, this thing is awesome. Really love this this product. There's no question about it. I've used it multiple times, and a couple things that I think that you should know about this POR 15 or POR 15, however they pronounce it. But it's not exactly cheap. You can order it on Amazon, which is where I had mine done. You can get it a lot of automotive paint supply stores carry them. I've seen a handful of like O'Reilly's or AutoZone will have it every once in a while, but they do carry it in a couple different colors. I've actually seen that come in a gray. I've seen it come in a matte black. Also, they make a great gas tank. It's like a gas tank sealer kit that you can pick up too. So a couple different options for you with that product. I love it. I use it all the time. I will continue to use it because it lasts a really long time, especially on these chassis. I've got a restoration on a 66 Bug that was done 10 years ago with this exact same product on the bottom side, and it still looks just as good today as it did 10 years ago. So it's a great product. I fully support and endorse this product. I think it's a great use for you. So one correction that I am going to make. I know in the previous video I said that I was going to do the bottom side and then seal with some seam sealer through all the seams on the bottom side. And I'm going to actually change my approach on this a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip the pan over, and I'm going to not seal it right now, and then use the POR 15 on the top side. I'll do the same process. I'll scuff the orange paint, give it a nice sticky, give it a nice area to stick to, and then once that dries, I'll come back and I'll seam seal with the 3M automotive seam sealer. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I don't really want to open up that tube of seam sealer because that product's also not very cheap. It is a bit on the expensive side. I don't remember exactly how much it cost, but when I ordered it, I think it was maybe like $15 for this container. So what I don't want to do is have this open and then have it accidentally dry out on me once I open it. So I'm going to wait, and I'm going to do all the seam sealer at the same time. We'll do top and bottom on that as soon as the chassis is completely painted black. So next steps, flip it over and get started on painting the POR 15 on the top side. And by the way, I finally got that pesky spring plate out. Took a 3/4 inch steel pipe to hammer it out from the other side, but I got it out. All right, well, flip it over and do the same thing, rinse and repeat. So see you soon. Well, we're done with the topside coat of the POR 15, the 61 bug chassis build, and we're getting ready to move on to the next step. So I wanted to talk about seam sealer as I give you a quick little walk around. This has been dry now for 2 days. Just getting back out here with a busy work schedule, so I haven't had a chance to get back out here. So seam sealer is super important. So we're going to use a automotive seam sealer. There are several different brands out there. I've used multiple different brands. I've used Eastwood. I've used this 3M product that I'm going to use this time. You can order this at any automotive body shop. You can order it online on Amazon. You can order it, really all over the place. Lots of online sources to order this. It can be relatively expensive. In relationship, I think like $20-30 for one container. This one container is enough to do the entire chassis, so you don't have any problem with just using one. In fact, I'll probably have a little bit of leftover here, unfortunately, that'll go to waste because this stuff doesn't really save very good. So, but here's the tools you need to do this job, and we're going to do top and bottom, and I'll show you where we're going to do this. So first of all, you need gloves again. So this is a common theme with these chassis builds. You want some good gloves, some good work gloves. Again, I like the GloveWorks nitrile gloves. They're my favorite to use. I like the green or the orange, and I buy either one just depending on what's in stock. But these are my favorite gloves to use. I also know that O'Reilly's carries a glove brand named Raven. I have used those in the past too. I really like them a lot, except they rip really easily. They are thicker than some of just the Harbor Freight cheap ones you can get, but they still rip easier than the GloveWorks do. I love these gloves. I'll continue to buy them because they don't rip very easily. You wear a pair of gloves for quite some time. Obviously, you need the seam sealer. So I like to use the 3M or Eastwood. Those are the two that I go back and forth with. Obviously, I like it in the black color because I use the black POR 15. So using that black seam sealer is going to obviously blend in really well. So, and then you need a caulking gun. So we'll be using this caulking gun. About due for a new one. It's just a cheap handheld, hand-used one. You can get these at Home Depot, Lowe's, anywhere you go. So now let's talk about wear. So any place that was welded that is a seam, you're going to want to seal back up. And so I'm really going to start from this edge here, and I'll probably run it down this corner and kind of come up and over all along this line here. Going to follow this line all the way across and seal this all the way around. Now I replaced this brace, so I'm going to seal up around in here, and this was already factory welded here, from the replacement pan, but that was welded here. But I am going to run seam sealer down through here and along this bottom side here. The other places that I'm going to seal, and they were sealed this way in the factory as well, is along this back brace here. So I'll go up and around here, try to seal in as much as possible, and wrap it back around in here. I want to try to keep any water from getting in to this chassis anytime soon. And then obviously repeat the process on the passenger side. And once that's in place, you don't necessarily need to wait for that to dry or cure. So I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to seal the underside just the same. So that'll be, again, following these lines. I'm going to seal it top and bottom. Really important to make sure you do both. If you had to do any metal work along in here, it'd be a good idea to seal this up around here. I would say not real necessary for you to seal the Napoleon's hat here at all, but the head here, if you had to do any replacement on that, I would definitely get in there and seal that up. But I did not have to do that with mine, so I'm feeling pretty comfortable with that the way it is. So anyway, that's the next step, is seam sealer, and I'll give you an updated video on how it looks when it's all done. So stay tuned. Seam sealer is down, and now we wait. Top and bottom, all seam sealed. It might be kind of hard to tell in the time lapse, but a couple things that I did. Number one, I opened the garage door. It's a little bit of a urethane smell to it. Number two, I took, after I laid a bead of seam sealer, I went around with my finger and smoothed it out, and that is to make sure that I've got a really good contact in between the seams. And I'm not trying to really make it look pretty because no one's going to see it, but I do want to make sure that I don't have any bubbles or gaps or anything there that didn't get filled with seam sealer. So that was what I was doing there. Other than that, now we just wait, and I think I'd let it sit for 24 hours. It'll be good to go by then. I'm not exactly sure what the cure time is on this thing, but yeah, that's it. Now we'll wait, and when I come back, the next step is we're going to lay down some sound deadener on the top side. So I'll have it flipped over, and I'll walk through laying down the sound deadener. So see you next time.